You think he's forgotten you, but silence is louder than any message you could send. While you're healing, growing, and choosing peace, he's slowly breaking in the silence he once took for granted. Every day without you is a reminder of what he lost. He doesn't show it, but trust me, he feels it. Let time do what words never could. This isn't about revenge, it's about your power. And the longer you stay quiet, the more it hurts him. Watch till the end. You'll never look at detachment the same way again. There's something undeniably powerful about silence, especially when it comes from a place of self-respect. When you pull away and stop chasing someone who took your presence for granted, your silence starts doing all the talking. It begins as confusion. For him, he wonders where you went, what happened, why things feel different. But what he doesn't realize is that the shift didn't just happen, it was earned. Your energy was drained, your kindness was stretched, and your patience was tested. You didn't disappear. You simply stopped showing up where you were no longer valued. And that choice, that speaks louder than any confrontation, because silence isn't empty. It's loaded with meaning he'll soon have to face. And in the beginning, he might feel invincible. He may think you'll eventually come back, or like you always did, but time changes everything. The longer the silence lingers, the heavier it becomes. That quiet space he once filled with half-hearted responses and passive attention now echoes with the absence of your love. Suddenly, it's not so easy to pretend he doesn't miss you. He notices your name isn't lighting up his phone. He sees your stories, but there's no message attached. He wonders if someone else is getting what he once had access to so freely. And in those moments of uncertainty, he begins to feel the ache. Not because you said anything, but because you didn't. And silence has a way of exposing everything. It reveals who truly cared and who only enjoyed the convenience of your presence. While you're growing, healing, and reclaiming your worth, he's sitting in the stillness you left behind. At first, he might distract himself. He'll scroll, text others, go out, laugh, act unbothered. But at night, when it's quiet, that's when it hits. That's when your absence becomes undeniable. And here's the truth. It's not that he didn't care. It's that he thought you'd always be there. Your silence rewrites that story. It reminds him that access to you was a privilege, not a guarantee. And when you no longer respond, he starts to reflect. Maybe at first it's just curiosity. Then it turns into doubt, then discomfort, then regret. He starts replaying the last conversation. He rewrites the timeline in his mind. Did I mess it up? Was she waiting for me to change? Is she really done with me? These thoughts begin to spiral because he no longer has control over your energy. You're not feeding his ego. You're not checking up on him. You're not reminding him that you're still available. And in the silence, he starts to feel exposed, vulnerable, alone, with the consequences of his own actions. And the power in your silence doesn't come from manipulation. It comes from truth. You're not withholding to cause pain. You're stepping back to protect your peace. That's a huge difference. And he'll notice the way you're not reacting, not chasing, not explaining, it all signals a shift. And shifts like that don't come from anger. They come from clarity. He may try to test the waters. He might send a vague message, try to bait a reaction, drop a like on your photo. But your silence has boundaries now. And boundaries are unfamiliar to someone who once had unlimited access to you. And he'll eventually realize he doesn't miss the messages or the attention. He misses you, your laugh, your support, your belief in him when he doubted himself, the way you made ordinary days feel significant, the little things he never noticed while he had them. It creeps in slowly, but it builds over time. And the longer he goes without that feeling, the more he starts to crave it. That's the quiet irony. The more distant you become, the more present you are in his mind. And that shift in power doesn't require games, just consistency. Consistent distance, consistent peace, consistent silence. And you start to exist in his thoughts more than you ever did in his life. Not because you're trying to haunt him, but because he never truly appreciated your presence when it was real. He remembers the moments you showed up, how deeply you cared, how patient you were. He can't recreate that with someone else. Not easily, not genuinely, because what you gave was rare. And the longer you stay silent, the more rare it becomes. Scarcity creates value. And now, in your silence, he finally sees your worth. Not because you told him, but because time and absence revealed it. And don't underestimate what your silence can teach. It teaches self-restraint. It teaches self-worth. It teaches you how much you were doing just to maintain a connection that wasn't doing enough for you. And for him, it teaches reality. Reality without your warmth, without your reassurance, without your love. Every day without you becomes a quiet lesson, a reminder of what he had, what he lost, and what he might never get back. You're not punishing him, you're just not rescuing him from the consequences of his actions anymore. And that's a lesson only time and distance can deliver. You left to get your peace back. And that's something he'll respect more than any emotional outburst. The longer he goes without you, the more he feels what he never acknowledged when you were there. That's the paradox. When you stop showing up for someone, it forces them to show up for themselves. And more often than not, they realize they can't replace you. And you don't have to announce your departure for it to be noticed. True absence speaks for itself. The strength you show in not reacting is louder than any attempt to get even. And while he sits with the silence trying to decode it, you're already 10 steps ahead. Building a life where you're loved effortlessly. One where your energy is appreciated, not just consumed. And every day you choose not to return to what broke you. You reclaim more power, more freedom, more peace. Because you finally understand your silence isn't just the end of something. It's the beginning of everything you deserve. Time doesn't just pass, it reveals. At first, when you go silent, he might brush it off. He'll convince himself that you'll reach out eventually, like before. He believes your patience is endless, your love unconditional, your presence guaranteed. But as the hours turn to days and the days into weeks, something shifts inside him. What started as arrogance becomes unease. He checks his phone out of habit, then out of hope. And every time your name doesn't appear, he feels it. The stillness begins to feel like punishment. But you're not punishing. You're simply no longer giving yourself to someone who never earned the privilege. And in the early days of silence, his ego is still in control. He plays the game in his mind. She's waiting for me. She'll come back. She just needs time. But as more time passes, those stories begin to fall apart. Time is relentless. It keeps ticking, even when he wants it to pause. He starts to realize this silence isn't temporary. This is what it feels like when someone stops fighting to stay. He expected anger, maybe a dramatic exit, but instead, you gave him nothing. And that quiet truth, it's louder than anything you could have said. And without your energy to feed on, he begins to feel hollow. Time starts to expose what he didn't want to admit. How much he relied on your emotional investment. He remembers how you checked in, how you supported him, how you always cared, even when he didn't say thank you. And now that care is gone. He scrolls through your old messages. He wonders if you've moved on. He starts thinking about the way your presence made his life softer, more stable, more full. And for the first time, he realizes how easy it was to take all of that for granted. And each day without you becomes a quiet reminder. He can't escape it. The silence surrounds him. When he wakes up, when he lies in bed at night, when he sees a memory pop up unexpectedly. Time, once his ally, now becomes the enemy. Every minute you don't come back chips away at his confidence. He thought he could replace the feeling. He tried. But no one speaks to his soul the way you did. And in your absence, he starts to remember everything with clarity, not just the good times, but also the mistakes he made that led to this silence. And time is honest. It strips away illusions and reveals truth. And the truth is, he had something valuable and let it slip away. The longer you stay silent, the more that truth sets in. You're not playing games, you're living your life, you're not hiding. You've simply stopped trying to convince someone to see your worth. That quiet strength shakes him, because now the control he once held is slipping. He can't predict your next move. He doesn't know if you're healing, dating, or done for good. And that unknown is more painful than any confrontation. And there comes a point when the silence stops being confusing and starts being terrifying for him. He starts to understand that every second without contact is a second closer to losing you permanently. At first, he thought time would bring you back. Now, time is the very thing making him doubt everything. What if she doesn't miss me? What if she finally woke up? These questions haunt him because deep down, he knows you gave more than enough chances. You stayed longer than you should have. And now you're finally doing the one thing he never expected. You're staying gone. And the harsh lesson time teaches him is this: emotional availability isn't something you can take lightly. He had someone who saw him, who wanted him, who rooted for him, and now all that energy is gone. Time makes him see what he couldn't while he was distracted, defensive, or indifferent. It reveals your value by showing him the void your absence leaves. And the more time passes, the harder it is for him to pretend he's unaffected. You're not calling, you're not chasing, you're not waiting. You've left the door, and now time is the only thing filling that space. And you're not asking time to hurt him. You're letting time show him the truth. The truth that losing you wasn't just losing a partner, it was losing peace, stability, and someone who genuinely gave a damn. He might not admit it, but it eats at him. Every joke that doesn't land, every night that feels empty, every conversation that feels forced. He compares it to what he had with you, and nothing matches. Because real connection can't be mimicked. It can't be replaced by casual flings or temporary distractions. You're not waiting for closure. You are evolving. That thought scares him more than silence ever could, because it means he no longer holds space in your future. He was a chapter, not the whole story. And while he's stuck in rewind, playing the same old moments, you're flipping the page. Time has taught you to choose yourself. And time is teaching him what it feels like to be chosen too late. And he learns too late that time can heal the one who walks away but destroy the one who watches them go. That's the real lesson. You found strength in distance, he found emptiness, and now time is the bridge he can't cross, not unless you lower it. But you've learned better. You've learned that silence isn't weakness and absence isn't loss, it's transformation. And as each day passes, you rise. Choosing to detach doesn't make you cold, it means you've finally woken up. You've realized that loving someone shouldn't come at the cost of losing yourself. There's power in walking away, not out of spite, but out of clarity. When a man takes you for granted, it's not your job to keep proving your worth. Your silence isn't bitterness, it's boundaries. Detachment isn't about hurting him, it's about healing you. You stop texting, calling, chasing, and he finally has to sit with the absence of your presence. The warmth he assumed would always be there is gone. And that shift, that's where everything begins to change. because now you're no longer available just because he feels lonely, and your detachment forces him into a space he never expected. Reflection, when he could reach you anytime, he never had to think too deeply. You were a constant, a comfort, something he assumed wouldn't change. But now, with no messages, no attention, and no energy being poured into him, he starts to notice the void. He used to take your emotional support as a given. Now he realizes that your love was not just sweet, it was rare. Not everyone checks in, not everyone listens without judgment, not everyone stays consistent through emotional storms. And now that you've detached, he's learning what it means to truly be alone. And detachment teaches lessons that words never could. You could tell him how hurt you were. You could explain how exhausted you felt. But sometimes people don't listen until you stop talking. When you stop engaging, he's left to feel the consequences of his own neglect. He is no longer distracted by your presence. Now he's haunted by it. Every song, every memory, every moment that once felt secure now feels distant. And that's the emotional shift he can't prepare for, because when a woman detaches with dignity, she doesn't just leave the room. She leaves a silence that lingers in every corner of his life. And he may not understand it at first. He might even call you cold, accuse you of being heartless, or wonder if you ever cared at all. But that's just his ego reacting to a new reality. Because what's really happening is that he's losing the comfort of your emotional availability. Detachment doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you stop sacrificing your peace. And deep down, he knows that. He knows you were there for him in ways he never acknowledged. And now that you've stepped back, he's left to replay all the ways he failed to show up for you in return. And the power of detachment lies in its quiet resolve. You're not begging. You're not explaining yourself for the 100th time. You've simply decided that if someone isn't meeting you halfway, you're done walking the whole distance. That decision isn't loud, but it's loud in impact. Suddenly, your absence becomes more noticeable than your presence ever was. He starts to feel the weight of conversations that never happened. He replays the things he said or didn't say, wishing he had done it differently. And in those moments, he starts to understand you didn't change overnight. You just stopped waiting, and you become a mystery to him. Someone he once understood so deeply now feels distant, almost unreachable. That mystery draws him in more than anything else ever did, because before he had access to your thoughts, your emotions, your time. Now he's guessing. He's wondering if you still think of him, if you've moved on, if he ever really mattered. Your detachment triggers his uncertainty, and in that space of not knowing, he starts to feel what you felt: doubt, insecurity, confusion. The difference? You lived with those feelings in silence. He's now learning what that silence sounds like. And the woman who detaches isn't cruel, she's courageous. It takes strength to walk away from someone you love, especially when a part of you still wants to believe in his potential. But love without effort is nothing more than a fantasy. You stopped loving what he could be and started accepting what he was. And what he was giving wasn't enough. So you chose yourself. That decision hurts at first, but eventually it brings peace, because now you're no longer pouring energy into someone who only took. You're investing that love into yourself, and that shift will change your entire life, and he notices it. The glow, the confidence, the way your energy isn't wrapped around him anymore. He sees you moving differently, quieter, but stronger. You're not reaching out to explain your worth. You're letting your absence explain everything. And the more time passes, the more it hurts him, because he realizes that the version of you he once had is no longer available. That woman who forgave, who waited, who compromised, she's gone. In her place stands someone who's done explaining, done fixing, done hoping, and nothing unsettles a man more than a woman who no longer needs to be heard, to be understood. And detachment is the beginning of emotional freedom. It's the moment you stop tying your happiness to someone else's behavior. He no longer holds power over your emotions. He doesn't get to dictate your joy or sadness. And the more emotionally free you become, the more trapped he feels in his own choices. Because he sees now what he let slip through his fingers. He didn't lose someone who was begging to stay. He lost someone who was brave enough to walk away. That difference matters, because while he thought he had time, you were already learning how to live without him. And this is what detachment looks like. Not anger, not revenge, but quiet growth. He'll see your photos and wonder who took them. He'll see your glow and wonder who gets to witness it now. And no matter how many times he checks, he won't find what he lost. Because emotional detachment creates a wall that can't be broken by words alone. He'll try to come back, maybe with charm, maybe with apologies, but by then you'll be different. Not bitter, just clear. Clear on what you deserve and who no longer qualifies to receive it. That realization is what breaks him slowly. And while he's realizing your worth, you're rebuilding your world. You're discovering how strong you really are. You're choosing peace over chaos. Love that flows over love that drains. Presence over promises. That's the reward of detachment. It doesn't just protect you, it transforms you. You stopped making excuses for his inconsistency and started making space for something real. And in doing so, you became unavailable to anyone who brings confusion. Your love is no longer a gift handed to just anyone. It must be earned. And by the time he figures that out, you'll already be long gone. Healing doesn't begin when he apologizes. It begins the moment you stop needing him to. Waiting for closure only prolongs your pain. You start to realize that healing isn't about what he says, it's about what you choose. When you go silent and stay silent, something inside of you shifts. You're no longer pacing the room, replaying the past. You're rebuilding yourself in that quiet. You're learning how to smile without needing his attention, how to breathe without checking your phone. Your healing is not a loud transformation. It's subtle, almost invisible to the outside world. But inside, your heart is learning peace. And that peace, that's what he will never forget. And he begins to notice the change. You're not reacting, you're not reaching, you're not waiting. That stillness used to scare you, but now it's become your sanctuary. He may think you're trying to make a statement, but the truth is, this isn't about him anymore. It's about you reclaiming your power. You're not hoping he'll notice. You're not leaving breadcrumbs. You've stopped performing for someone who stopped applauding long ago. And in that stillness, your value multiplies. Because healing is not about silence that punishes. It's about silence that protects. You're no longer available for people who bring more confusion than clarity. And every moment you don't reach out, you're proving something powerful to yourself. That you don't need closure, you need clarity. And that clarity comes from within. You're no longer chasing a version of love that asks you to shrink. You're no longer watering a connection that refused to grow. And as time goes on, something beautiful happens. The urge to explain yourself fades. The desire to prove your worth dies. You realize you were enough the whole time. It was just him who couldn't see it. And if he couldn't value you, he never deserved access to you. Not then, not now. And you start falling in love again, but this time with your own life. with the mornings that feel calm, with the peace that isn't disturbed by uncertainty. You remember what it's like to laugh without holding back. You give your energy to people who reflect it, not just absorb it. And in this new version of you, there's no space for someone who only showed up halfway. You stop wondering if he misses you. You stop checking who watched your story because you're finally watching your story unfold, and it's better than anything he could have written for you. And the deeper you heal, the more you see the truth. He didn't break you. He revealed what needed to be healed. His absence became the mirror that showed you where your wounds were. Maybe it wasn't about him at all. Maybe it was about learning not to abandon yourself for love. You start forgiving yourself, not for loving him, but for staying too long, for trying to fix what wasn't yours to fix. And that self-forgiveness becomes the foundation of your healing, because now your heart doesn't ache for someone to come back. It beats with the rhythm of someone who came home to herself. And what he never expected was your silence to last this long. He assumed it was temporary, a tactic, a phase. But the truth is, silence became your new strength. And while he's still measuring his worth through your reaction, you've stopped reacting entirely. He checks for signs you're watching, but you're not. He sends messages into the void, but you don't answer. Not because you're cruel, but because your healing no longer includes him. You're no longer trying to make him regret. You've just moved beyond needing anything from him at all. And that's what breaks him more than any goodbye ever could. And you begin to see healing isn't always about letting go of him. It's about reclaiming you, your joy, your identity, your boundaries. The version of you that forgot her worth now feels like a distant memory. You're not desperate anymore. You're discerning. You're not looking for someone to save you. You've become your own anchor. And with every step forward, you create a new standard for how love should feel. Safe, honest, effortful. His inconsistency once felt like a puzzle you had to solve. Now it just feels like noise you're no longer tuning into. And he will feel the shift in ways he doesn't understand. He'll wonder why the same messages that once pulled you in now fall flat. He'll send the "I miss you" texts and realize they don't land. Because healing gives you emotional distance. You've unhooked yourself from the drama. You've replaced fantasy with facts. And the fact is, someone who valued you wouldn't have put you in a position where silence became necessary. He watches you glow from afar. But that glow doesn't need his validation anymore. You're not punishing him. You're simply protecting the peace you fought so hard to earn. And healing isn't linear. It comes in waves. Some days you miss him, some nights you question yourself. But healing doesn't mean you don't hurt. It means you don't go back to what hurt you. You've stopped justifying his behavior to your friends. You've stopped making excuses for his silence. You've stopped trying to decode every mixed signal. Now your time is spent on things that matter, on people who show up, on energy that feels mutual. You're no longer trapped in the cycle of waiting, hoping, hurting. You've broken free. And with every passing day, your silence speaks louder than your words ever could. And the woman you're becoming terrifies him. And rightfully so, because he remembers the version of you that stayed, that pleaded, that compromised. And now she's gone. In her place is someone who chooses herself, who doesn't chase, who doesn't settle. And that evolution, it's irreversible. He may try to circle back. He may whisper old promises, but now you see it clearly. You no longer look at him through the lens of potential. You see him as he is. And that clarity, that truth becomes your freedom. You've healed past the point of pretending. And healing isn't loud. It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it looks like quiet mornings, unread messages, and a heart that no longer races when you hear his name. It's not about winning or losing. It's about returning to yourself. The part of you that was always whole, always worthy, always enough. And the beautiful twist in it all, the more you heal, the less you care if he ever understands what he lost. Because what matters now is what you gained, your power, your peace, and a love that finally starts with you.